My name is Marius. I'd like to start by thanking Venki and Aditya for the presentation, and I'll have to say that I cannot wait for Orchestrator to be hosted as a service in the new platform. I am currently working on the Orchestrator project as an engineering manager, and today we'll talk about the Orchestrator APIs, and for that we'll also have some demos and examples, and I'd like to welcome Christian Pufo on stage. He will help me with some of the demos. While we get the laptop set up and ready for the demos, I like to start by saying that in the Orchestrator API, you can achieve anything that you can achieve in the Orchestrator interface. We are currently using OData for that. It provides a RESTful API. So as I said, anything is possible. You can start jobs, you can add new items. Anything that is possible from the activity is also possible from the Orchestrator API. Also, by using the OData tool, OData API, it provides a schema which contains various entities, actions, functions, parameters. All of these are available in this schema, an XML file, which can be used or interpreted by different tools, like the one provided by Pragmatica, which we'll showcase soon. After the, can we switch to the demo? Okay, let's open the URL. I'll start by saying that the schema is accessible at this URL, /odata/metadata. Here you can see that XML file, where you can see all the entities. And if we open the Pragmatica tool, okay, we can copy the URL, upload it, and here you can see all the entities in Orchestrator and their relationships. For example, you can see that let's say that permission DTO, library DTO, license runtime DTO, everything is right here. Let's switch back to the deck. Okay, as you can see, I have that photo in my deck as well. Okay, also we are using Swagger. This is a tool where all the endpoints in the API are exposed, and you can visualize and interact with them. We'll have a demo of that, but until then, I'd like to also say that they are also documented. The dev team takes extra care when doing this, making sure that all the input and output parameters of each endpoint are documented so that you can easily know how to use a specific API endpoint. And also, if you're using the Swagger UI view, you don't have to worry about authentication. If you're authenticated in Orchestrator, you'll also be authenticated in Swagger. Let's switch to the demo, and we'll see that. Let's open on Platform, our Community Edition. And the URL is platform.uipath.com/Swagger. And this is accessible on your on-premise deployments as well. Let's wait for it to load. It takes a while because we have a lot of endpoints. As you can see, you can also add an API key, but that's not necessary. Let's show endpoints, maybe the robots one. Yeah. Here we can see all the endpoints from the robots controller, let's say, from a GET request, a POST request. Okay, and let's try GET request. You should log in first.
But I don't know the credentials.
No? That's okay then. Can you showcase on your local deployment then?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's go to localhost. And it should load quicker here, I hope. Okay, and let's do the same thing. And it should work here unless organizations are enabled. Let's see. Okay, and as you can see, here we have the response body. If you can scroll up a little bit. You'll also see the parameters that this endpoint accepts, like stop, skip, use for pagination, filtering. And also, if you scroll even more, okay, here you can see an example of the response model. And also the model, if you switch to the model tab, you can see that all the properties are documented, like machine name is the name of the machine of the robot. Okay, let's switch back to the DEX. In Orchestrator, we support multiple authentication mechanisms, like basic authentication, Windows authentication, Azure AD, SAML since 18.4, Google since 16.0. Sadly, in the API, we don't support all of those. We support basic authentication and Windows authentication. If you use basic authentication, you'll receive a token which expires in 30 minutes. We have plans to fix that in the future, if, receiving also a refresh token and being able to use that refresh token to obtain a new bearer token. But those are future plans. We'll talk about them later. If you're using Windows authentication, the session doesn't expire, but of course, Windows authentication should be enabled. And this is can be used via PowerShell or .NET or any language you want. We'll go through a few examples now. If we can switch to the demo.
Okay. I'm gonna use Postman to show you the examples. This is the authentication endpoint. We are going to authenticate.
As you can see, we have to send the username, the password, and the tenancy name, and we'll receive a bearer token. We receive a result, and the bearer token is contained there.
We can use this bearer token, for example, to start a job. It's an authorization header. Okay. Okay, we need a process. I don't think I have any processes. Okay, we have a hello world package. We're gonna create a process. We should input some message. Hello world. I need the release key. I'm gonna get it directly from the database,
Usually, you can retrieve that from the
API.
Okay, and let's look over the parameters. You have release key, robot IDs, jobs count, okay, strategy. Here we use specific because we specified the robot ID. And also we have some input arguments here. New feature added in 19.3. Okay, as you can see, we received that. If we start the process from Orchestrator, a different message should be displayed. So here we have hello world. And just start the process from Orchestrator. Yeah, so a different message was displayed. So in this way, you can start a job from the API and also send an input argument. Let's move to the next demo. I know that on the forum at least, one of the most asked questions is how you can add a queue item via the API. So we'll showcase that here. It's really easy in this case, but you can add specific content or anything you like. So again, we have to use the bearer token. We call the add queue item endpoint. We have a queue here. Okay. Okay, now we're adding a new item to the my queue. With priority high, you can change that to low or medium. And it also has a specific content, a equals 1. So the request was successful, and if you go to the queue, the item should be added here. And also from the API, you can change the status of this queue item, mark it as in progress. This can be useful for different integrations. Maybe you have another system that needs to process an item, and you want to add a queue item, then change its progress. Maybe modify the progress of the queue item as well. That's possible from the API. As I said, anything is possible. You can do it from an activity, you can do it from the API. Let's switch to the next demo. Another question that pops up on the forum is how you can upload a package from the API. Here we will showcase doing that from Postman, but it's also possible from other clients like .NET or Sharp or .NET or Node.js. From past Postman, it's really easy. You just have to add, again, the bearer token. Select an OPAC. And in this case, the request will fail because the package already exists. If you can upload another, if you upload another package, the request should work. It's fine. But it's okay. Another endpoint, actually it's more of a feature. I'm not sure how many of you are using it, organization units. It's an experimental feature, but it's used nevertheless. If you enable it and a user is a member of multiple organization units, when using the API, you have to specify in which organization unit do you want to perform a specific action. And to do that, you can add this header to the API, x.uipath.organization unit ID. In this case, we set it to 1, but we can do that, set it to 2 as well. I'm not sure if you have multiple organization units defined in Orchestrator. Okay. The last endpoint that I'd like to talk about is an endpoint that usually is used in high availability deployments. It's the API status endpoint. What this endpoint does on the server side, it checks if the connection to the database and to Redis and other external services is still okay, up. If not, you can use this endpoint to specify to notify the load balancer that this machine isn't okay. It shouldn't be reached by Orchestrator clients. You have 5 machines, you can use this endpoint, and if anything goes down, one of the machines will be removed from the load balancer until it's working again. Can we switch back to the DEX for now? Okay. Another good part of using OData and Swagger is that there are also other tools that can be used, like Autorest. What Autorest does is it can generate an API client in different languages like C#, Node.js, Java, Python, Ruby, etc. We'll have a demo for that, so let's switch again to the demo. And I want to say that we are using this internally for testing our endpoints, generating a .NET client in this case. The project is open source, available on GitHub, so you can check the sources or maybe open a pull request, something isn't working. We'll use PowerShell to generate the API client. It takes as an input the swagger.json file, which can be accessed on the Swagger page, which we showcased earlier. Okay, so you just have to install that package using npm, and then you set the input to Swagger.json and select the language. In this case, we have Node.js and Python. Yeah. Okay. And it might take a while, but in the end, we'll have a complete client of the API, of the Orchestrator API. This means that you'll have all the functions, all the entities exposed there. It will also handle authentication. You have the endpoint to authenticate, and then you receive the bearer token. You can add it to the next request you want to perform. As you can see, it generated a Python.orchestrator folder. And also the Node.js. Can you open the folder? Is anything generated there? Or? Yeah, as you can see, we have some models here like asset DTO, and this is Python. Yeah. So if you want to do any custom integrations with the API, or maybe write a custom activity, you can use this and this auto-rest feature as well to generate an API client. While this is generating, we can switch again to the deck. And I'd also like to talk about the new feature added in 18.4 webhooks. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this feature. What it means is that if you wanted to know if something happened in Orchestrator, you have to continuously ask Orchestrator, is this job completed, is this job completed, etc. Now you don't have to do that anymore. You can just go to the webhooks page, add a webhook, which is actually just an endpoint, publicly available endpoint in your application. Add that endpoint in Orchestrator, and Orchestrator will make sure that when a job is completed or when a new item is completed, when a robot is created, I think also we'll add more webhooks in the future, that application is notified. This can be used by integrations. It also is secure. We are using a security mechanism where we sign the body of the request to make sure that only Orchestrator can call your open endpoints. And I'd also like to talk about some specific use cases of this, what you can do with webhooks, some ideas. One of those is chaining processes. You can have, let's say, 3 processes, each with input-output arguments. And when the first process is finished, you can take its output, send it as an input to the second process, and do the same thing for the third process, or have some logic where you decide this process is failed, and I should start a new process which will handle the exception. Another use case can be currently for queues at least, you have to continuously pull if you have new queue items in the queue. But you can do it in another way, let's say. You can write a custom application in which you link a queue to a process, and when a new queue item is added to the queue, you can start the process using webhooks. You don't have to keep job running all the time just to poll for new data. Another use case can be a custom alert system. You can use the webhooks to see when a job failed, when a queue item failed, when a queue item succeeded, and send an alert. We can also use the Orchestrator raise alert endpoint for that, but you can also do it in another ways, in a custom fashion. Lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about future plans for the API. One of the most requested features, both internally and externally, is to add API versioning. Currently, if we decide to change an endpoint, some integrations might fail. To prevent that, we can add versioning, making sure that no breaking changes are ever added to the product. Another thing on which we'll work in the future is supporting some other authentication mechanisms for the API, like maybe SAML, maybe Auth0. We'll see about that. Also, in the future, maybe we'll take a look also at some other parents to API, like APIs like GraphQL, which is currently gaining a lot of popularity, but we'll see about that. I'd like to thank you for being here. Also, Chrissy says me that we also have a demo for the webhooks. So if we can switch again to the.
We created one application just as a proof of concept. Okay. We need to define our webhook. We'll create a webhook just for the job completed event. So each time a job completes, we'll receive a ping in this application. I'm gonna use the API to start a job.
Okay, the job was started. And if you go to the application, you could see the event.
Job completed event.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna create another webhook that subscribes to all events. As you can see, the start job actually triggered a lot of events. Job created, job completed, change the robot status, stuff like that. For example, if we add a new queue item, we have the queue item edit event. This is a very powerful feature and you can use it to, I don't know, do a lot of powerful things. Like what Marius said earlier, chain processes, trigger a process when a queue item is added in a queue and stuff like that. Raise a custom alert whenever something happens, like a robot changes its status and so on.
And maybe we'll think about making this application open source,
Yeah,
so you can use it to test your webhook integrations.
Yeah, you'll find it in the GitHub UiPath repository. But it's just a proof of concept application, so you shouldn't use it in production.
Okay, if you have any questions regarding the API, sure.
With the help of this webhook, if you find any jobs got failed, so there would be multiple statuses like failed.
Yeah.
If we are running more than 100 bots on that, so there would be multiple, more than 1,000 records would be entered. So in that scenario, what kind of means actions are being taken? Like, are we having any export functionality in this to check what jobs got failed?
The job failing have to be handled by the webhook consumer. In this case,
Okay.
you will receive one ping for each failed job. Otherwise, you can, just listen for failed jobs, and if any job failed in the last 10 minutes, query the Orchestrator API and see which jobs failed. You don't want to process all that notifications.
So my question was actually something different. If I get something status as failed, so is it possible for me to, with the help of this postman, is it possible for me to run the job job which got as a status as failed? Means
Run it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You can then use the start job endpoint and queue the job again, start it again, in this case.
Okay. Means if I can find something in the orchestrator as a status as failed, I can directly use this type of postman activity where I can directly run the job again. The jobs which got failed, I can run that job.
Yeah,
I can,
yeah. Can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there no any way like it can restart itself? Like, can we program it like that?
Not yet, but we had a lot of requests for this feature. I can say that we are thinking about it.
Like in RE framework, we have like it can recover from a failed state. A similar way we don't have in Orchestrator, right?
No, in this case, if the job failed, we'll just quit again, I guess. I'm not sure if it will recover from the failed state.
Version, if it's possible. Can we try to implement that feature in 19.1 version if possible?
I'm not sure about that. The product team has to, and we have William there, which can help with that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we'll be outside the room available for any question you have. No? Okay, then that's it. I'd like to thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.